My name is Tiffany Simons-Chan, and I'm the Education Coordinator at Eden Place Nature Center. And I'm actually going to start by giving you a little bit of background about what we do. I suspect that many people in this room don't really know about us, and then I'll use that as a starting off point to tell you more about the trends that I see in work that's being done that's kind of related to what we're doing. So Eden Place Nature Center, just by a show of hands, has anyone heard of Eden Place before? Oh, good. So some people. Eden Place is a very small community-based nature center that's located on the south side of Chicago. We're actually in Fuller Park, which is the smallest neighborhood in Chicago, just west of Bronzeville, about 43rd Street, just west of the Expressway. And it is located on a 3-acre site that used to be a brownfield. So it was basically, for 35 years, an abandoned dump site, an illegal dump site where local construction companies and who knows who else were leaving old building materials, all sorts of contamination. There was a pile of about 2 stories high of garbage that had lead and asbestos and all sorts of nasty stuff. And community members, led by Michael Howard, who's the executive director of our organization, basically decided that they didn't want this in their community anymore. And they worked together to clean up the site and then to actualize the vision of creating a nature center in this community. Now, for those of you who spend a lot of time going to places like conservatories, the North Park Village Nature Center or the Chicago Botanic Garden or the Lincoln Park Zoo, a lot of those organizations are on the north side of Chicago. There are very few of those kinds of organizations and actually no nature centers on the south side of Chicago, or there weren't before Eden Place was brought about. And so basically, community members all worked together to transform this site into a nature preserve that was really rooted in the needs and interests of community members. So now we have all sorts of really interesting things going on this very, very small site. We have native prairie. We have a wetland, we have 10 ducks and 25 chickens that are all egg-laying. We have community garden plots, which are actually in raised beds because there's still a lot of contamination in that soil. And actually, Fuller Park is what, along with Englewood, those 2 neighborhoods have the highest lead contamination rates in the city. So a lot of the work that we do is really rooted in addressing environmental issues that are really relevant to community members. It's primarily African American community in that neighborhood, and we really try to root everything that we do in the community. So some of the kinds of programming that we have at Eden Place, the things that I'm primarily involved with running, the main focus for us, especially in this past year, was a focus on internationally migrating species. So we have a grant from the U.S. Forest Service International Program and have focused on the monarch butterfly. So some of you, I didn't actually know very much about the monarch before working at Eden Place, but you may know that the monarch butterfly migrates from Mexico up to Canada and back every year. Well, different generations, not the same butterflies. And they pass through Chicago, so you may have noticed there are some trees that they gather on. Actually, at Eden Place, we have been designated the Illinois Monarch Live Site. So we're part of an international community that's working to try to conserve the monarch butterfly. So we do all sorts of programming related to that. We actually took a group of community members out to the Peggy Notabart Nature Museum and put little tags on the butterflies, like you actually hold the butterfly and put a sticker on its wing and then let it go and it flies away, and it's kind of magical. Yeah.
But you know which one it is.
Yes. And so that's one example of some of the programming that we've done related to the Monarch Live program. We work with school groups to raise monarch butterflies in the classroom and release them in Eden Place, and to grow milkweed, which is the plant that the caterpillar eats, and plant that at Eden Place. So that's one area of focus for us. Also related to the funding that we have with that grant was the summer program for teens that I actually ran last summer. That's kind of similar to some other programs that are out there, where we had a group of teenagers who kind of worked to become entrepreneurs, learn how to grow produce at Eden Place that we then sold at farmers markets, that we sold at a farmers market at Eden Place. So that's a way of getting the teens involved. We do a lot of work with families. And all of this is connected to our mission of protecting the environment, of providing community members with access to nature, recreation, and environmental education, and then also providing access to nature, period, in areas of the city where there's often not a whole lot of access to pristine nature. So how does that relate to the big picture of what's happening in Chicago? One of the big trends that I see, especially which came about in the last year, was this real focus on trying to get kids and families outside. So some of you may have read the book Last Child in the Woods by Richard Louv. Came out about 4 years ago. And then just in this last year, the initiative, the No Child Left Inside initiative. I know it's catchy. It's a little play on words. That has really been become more active this year, and that's an initiative that's spearheaded by Chicago Wilderness, and it's a coalition of a lot of different organizations and groups and communities that are trying to get families to spend more time outside, because there's a lot of research, and I think probably a lot of people in this room know that there are a lot of health benefits, all sorts of individual benefits, and that having spent time outside as a child often forms a foundation for caring about the environment and for acting on behalf of the environment. So there are a lot of work like what we're doing at Eden Place to really provide families with access to quality outdoor nature, recreation, and conservation experiences. There are also a lot of different programs that I think are focusing on, and this is something that I foresee coming up in the next year and the years beyond, focusing on really cultivating a strong sense of place and an appreciation for your local biodiversity. So the kind of thing that we're doing with the monarch butterfly. That's something that is, well, the monarch passes through different areas of North America, but it's something that we can really take pride in our community, that you don't necessarily have this monarch migration everywhere, but we can say, look, we have this really unique phenomenon that we want to try to protect. And that's something that we're seeing with a lot of different organizations, and that ties into the ecotourism and agritourism movement to try to get people to bring their families to travel to your region and invest in your organization in exchange for this kind of unique experience that they're having.
Cool. How can folks get involved?
Yes. So I can talk about how you might get involved at Eden Place, and I think that that's similar to ways that you might get involved with a lot of other organizations. First of all, volunteer. Now that may mean, you know, going and helping like weed or helping with our planting. It may mean volunteering at community events, or if you have a particular form of expertise, you can always share that with an organization. And especially one trend we're seeing is trying to help young people learn about how they can get involved with environmental issues and environmental work. So that's something that you can really share with communities that may not have access to that. Second, there's always donation. Of course, we know that you can donate money, but you may not think about making in-kind donations. So at Eden Place, for instance, we always need more tools. We always need things like art supplies, craft supplies, gardening supplies, all sorts of things that you may not think about donating to an organization, and that's one way that you can really help out. And then also support the organizations that you feel are really connected to the things that you care about with regard to the natural environment. So it may be Eden Place, it may be some of these other organizations that focus on specific nature preserves or environmental issues that that are really dear to your heart. And also share that, so you share that commitment through your support with the organization, and also with writing to your state representatives, telling people about how much that is important to you and how much you think that's a valued part of our Chicagoland experience.